Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address presented by pucksandpitchforks.com. I'm your host, Sam Wu, coming to you live from the bunker in North Jersey. And pucksandpitchforks.com's editor-in-chief, Nick Villano, coming from the South Jersey bunker. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Yeah, baby. Talking more Devils hockey during the offseason as the Stanley Cup Finals will begin this Saturday, June 8th. As I'm excited for, I don't know. If I was a media member, I wouldn't be excited about the ride between Florida, South Florida, and Edmonton.
I mean, you're going to watch the Stanley Cup final. Like, your life is pretty good if you're one of those people. You know what I mean?
Actually, to tell you the truth, it's if it goes 7 games, so 5, then 6, and then 7, back. That's a tough series, travel-wise.
I mean, I've always been that person that, like, if I get to the airport on time, like, I don't mind traveling.
Well,
I also have I have different lounge access, so it's kind of different for me.
Well,
you know,
I'm looking from the standpoint of also immigration. You know, you got to go through.
Canada's. I just went to Toronto, so maybe Toronto's different. But the Canada-U.S. thing has become a lot more streamlined. Like, it's super simple. Like, you do it before you get there.
No.
So you don't have to wait in line once you get off the plane.
Me as a U.S. citizen, even when I went to Alaska going through Vancouver, I still have problems. It's
really.
I am always the guy that goes. I go there, and they say, "Sir, you can go to that lane." And you know what that means. Whether it's worse by car because if I go by car at certain borders from U.S. to Canada, my car gets searched. Everything questions. Why are you here? Oh, you're vacationing. Where are you vacationing? You know, sometimes it's easy and it's hit or miss for me with Canada.
It was funny. My bachelor party was in Montreal, and we drove. And they pulled us over because it was me and 3 other dudes. Like, they were gonna pull us over. That's fine. But they did a soft search to my car. My cousin drove in from Boston, and they're like, "Why are you here?" He's like, "I'm here for a bachelor party." I was like, "Oh no, you don't say that." They almost took it down to the studs, looking for stuff. My cousin's a very he's not a party animal by any means, so he wasn't going to have anything in his car, but they were looking for all kinds of stuff, and he had none of it.
Oh, you know what? And I remember one time went with my friend and his wife, Molly, packed us some snacks so we didn't have to stop by, from Jersey to Montreal. And we totally forgot about it. Of course, we stopped by and ate dinner somewhere in the middle, like in Plattsburgh, right? After we went through Plattsburgh, we had the quick, fast food meal. I think we were 5 minutes to the border, and I'm like, oh, crap. She packed us food. And I'm like, what did she pack? It was grapes, apples, all these fruits and vegetables you're not supposed to bring. So I remember opening up the window and ate whatever I could and stuffed my mouth with grapes and, biting what I could and just threw it out, made sure nothing was there.
Yeah, because they'll think you're smuggling stuff in apples, and it's extreme. But how did we get here? I don't know. Oh, you're talking about the media. My point is I don't feel bad for them. They got a pretty great job.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got free meals. Courtesy of the NHL, and the media.
Right, it's fine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. I was going to talk about something I don't want to talk about anymore now. Actually, I was going to talk about the state of the Devils media, but I think I'll only get in trouble if I bring that up.
No, I actually want to talk about that. Let's get in trouble, Nick. Let's get in trouble because We're probably one of those podcasts where everybody's got a podcast, right?
Listen, if it was easy, everybody would try it, right? Or everybody would do it successfully, I guess, because everybody's tried it, right? There's probably like 60 Devils podcasts out there now. Like, no kidding. Like, everybody who's a Devils fan thinks he could do a podcast, and I enjoy some of them. We love Trey. Trey's a friend of the podcast. He writes for pucksfishworks.com, and he's very popular. And what Trey has done is he's built his niche on YouTube, and he's become well known. And now he gets media credentialed, and I'm proud of Trey. Trey's done a lot of good work. He's somebody that I've worked closely with for a long time, and the kid's a sponge. But then you got a bunch of other ones that just kind of, some go on Substack and hide themselves from the public. Some just kind of throw caution to the wind. Some are super inconsistent, do them once every couple months, once every couple weeks. So there's a reason why we're here, Sam. I know we took some time off.
Well, that was for medical
right.
reasons on my end, and as a group, if you remember. And I actually explained this on the Woo Report, and also it's out there.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is out there. We're pretty transparent. As a group, if you remember, nobody wanted to go till I was out of the hospital, or at least getting better. That's how we put it. And, that decision, because at the time we were like, we've never taken time off, but at that moment, it was, in hindsight, it was the right decision. And my boy was in trouble, and that's all I cared about. You know what I mean? Me and Sam didn't know each other before we did this podcast together, but now I consider you a good friend. Yeah.
And when
absolutely.
I heard that there was something wrong, that's all I cared about, and that's all we should have cared about. And I do think I agree with you. Sam came to me, and he came to Beer Baron and Shorts Guy and Vinny and Scotty, and was worried about the podcast
and crew,
and
crew.
Right. Yeah, and crew. We were very clear that was what was most important, and he's on the mend. As you can see, I'm excited that he's back. I went 45 minutes alone last week. That was
I know.
That was an intense experience, but it was good. I mean, we had plenty to talk about, so it was easy. And we have plenty to talk about tonight. We're going to get
and the Rangers getting kicked out of the playoffs suddenly, miraculously. A Woo Report
I'm really trying not to get the rent-free crew on my back, but man,
we live in their heads, buddy.
Good.
I mean, I went trolling for about a day and a half on Twitter, just nonstop nonsense. And you know what I was doing? I would take the nonsense that usually Ranger fans deal to me, friends, family, random Rangers fans, and just went right back with the nonsense, the same exact nonsense. I almost pulled hey, I went to, Madison Square Garden, got Game 7 tickets face value at the box office. All those lies that Ranger fans talk about, about the Devils, and then they go back to their parking lot Stanley Cup, parties, whatever.
I always like to inform them that they've had one Stanley Cup since color television.
Oh, that's better than my VCR comments.
It's just start telling them who was president. Or the fun part is that you have one Stanley Cup when there was more than 6 teams in the league. It's just hilarious. That's hilarious. The Devils have 3 Stanley Cups. And what was the lowest amount of teams? What was 95? Was 95 26 teams?
Something like that.
So it's a legitimate cup. We had to win 4 series.
Well,
to get
they say it's a half a cup because it was a half a season. Okay,
that doesn't make any sense.
But it doesn't, because you still have to win 16 games. I mean, when the Rangers were winning cups when they were winning cups in 1930 something, I think they only had to win 5 games, 3. I think they won one series 3-2.
Right.
Against the Montreal Maroons or something like that. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Right, yeah, it's like the Brooklyn Barons, or there's just a bunch of nonsense. And yeah, so point being, I could care less about the Rangers now that they're out. They can do their own thing. They have so many problems, Sam. They have to pay Igor. They have to pay Lafreniere. I think Lafreniere is this off season. They're going to overpay that guy, and I'm excited. I'm excited that they're going to overpay that guy. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Kakko, the former second overall pick that they cheered that they got to draft. They might not even qualify that guy. He might become a free agent, and I would laugh. It would be hilarious if the Devils signed him. I hope. Here's what I hope. I don't hope this, but this gives the Devils leeway that if they trade Alex Holtz, they could replace him with Kakko because they have very similar skill sets. And I think that you wouldn't lose a lot there. Kakko still has a lot to build. Obviously, the Rangers have to non-qualify him. But, Sam, I'm starting to see some Devils fans getting a little impatient with the fact that they haven't traded for a goalie yet. And I just have to say, like, we have to have that virtue of patience because the Devils are getting a goalie this offseason.
Uh-huh.
The good news is, and I'm going to write about this. I'm going to write about the rooting interest for the Oilers and the Florida Panthers. But one of the rooting interests for the Oilers, and I think it's already there, but winning the Stanley Cup would kind of put it over the top, is it takes them out of the goalie market. And the Devils need as few teams as possible out of the goalie market. Right now, you're going to go against Carolina. You're going to go against Toronto. Those are like the two obvious teams to me. Probably Philly. I don't know what they think of Urson like long term, but they also have Ivan Fedotenko, or I can't say his name. I haven't heard it said yet, but the guy from Russia that they just signed. So they gave him $3 million, so they clearly think something of him. I think San Jose is going to be in the goalie market. I think that Anaheim's going to be somewhat in the goalie market as they try to replace John Gibson. I just wrote an article about 5 surprise buyout candidates the Devils signed. John Gibson's on there because his buyout is weird this year where it's not terrible. And with the cap going up and the Ducks in this place where they're going to keep building just like the Devils did, I think that they can afford it. I think it makes sense just to kind of get him off the roster. They're just not getting a good trade package for him. Nobody's taking on that contract. So they might buy him out. Aiden Hill's a name that came up. I don't think he's actually available. I think Logan Thompson's great, but they don't have to trade Aiden Hill, right? That's not really a place where the Vegas Golden Knights are, and they don't have that 1-2 combo where they have a backup plan to Logan Thompson. So I don't think they're going to be in it. I'm just trying to think of who, like, Sam, can you think of who else might be in the goalie market? Maybe Columbus. Columbus might be in the goalie market.
They could be.
They're trying to trade Merzlikins, so like I don't know what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I've heard those rumors. I'm not saying that's going to the Devils. The Markstrom.
No. I'm trying to say who's the Devils' competition this offseason.
Oh,
it's Toronto for a goalie. Toronto, Carolina, Los Angeles probably. I think Los Angeles will
definitely
be in the goalie
Carolina,
market.
Toronto.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe Philly. I said Philly just because of the Carter Hart situation now with the Urson. I don't know how much they like Urson, but I said they have Fedotenko, who's the Russian they gave $3 million to, so they might not be. I don't know what Pittsburgh's doing. There's rumors that Jari might be available. I don't want Jari. He's just too injury prone.
Yep.
I think he's a good goalie, but you just can't deal with the injuries. But you look at these guys, and the Devils just have wildly more assets that are available. Like Toronto doesn't really have much. They have Nicholas Robertson. They have some picks. Maybe they make Liljegren, the defenseman, available, but he just hasn't really done it on the NHL level. And you look at Carolina, like they have Nikas. That's the X factor. Like if they're willing to trade Nikas straight up for a goalie. But I look at the market, and you're looking at Markstrom. Markstrom has a no trade clause, and he's already waived it for the Devils. So he's willing to live in New Jersey. He's willing to come here, and that's going to be the X factor here. I think what Fitzgerald is doing is he knows that he can get Markstrom to come here. It sounds like they've already agreed to a framework of a deal at the trade deadline. I bet you he just goes back to that well and says, if the offer's still on the table, great. But I think he'd rather have Ullmark or Saros for two reasons. One is they're younger. And two, he kind of gets to control it a little bit more because the extension's coming next year. So while we're all kind of worried about what that extension is going to look like, I think Fitzgerald is almost excited to kind of negotiate those extensions. I think Saros is way up as the top of the list by a long shot, by far. And then I think you go 3 rungs down, and then it's Ullmark, because you got to worry. Ullmark has not been good in the playoffs. Ullmark has always been a 1A or a 1B, never been the guy. Even when he won the Vezina, Swayman was doing some big work that year. I think Ullmark only played 49 games that year, so it's not like he wildly held on to the load. But then you got Markstrom, who, I was really digging into Markstrom's numbers today, and I've been on the Markstrom train for a while. Man, that season 2 seasons ago really scares me, where he was minus 18 in goals saved above average. That's kind of it's almost as bad as Vanacek was this year. Vanacek was a little bit worse. I think Vanacek ended up being minus 23 or 25. So, but you just never want to have a guy who is a minus who you're kind of putting your entire career on. But here's why I do like the Markstrom deal. I think that the return is going to be a million times less. Legitimately, I think they could get away with Alani Haminaho and a 3rd round pick. I just don't think that the Flames have any leverage in this because of that no trade clause. Although we've seen that backfire before. Because what was it? Was it Pierre-Luc Dubois? Right? Everybody said that he was going to Montreal. He was going to use his no trade clause to make sure he went to Montreal. He was never going to sign an extension. And he signed 8 years in Los Angeles. It backfired terribly. But, so we've seen it. We've seen teams wait it out a little too long. But I do think the Markstrom thing, until he gets dealt, I think that's always in the back pocket of the Devils, and they don't have to trade. I truly think Nashville's coming to the table you got to give us Mercer or we're not making the deal. And I think that Fitzgerald is scoffing at that because Mercer, a lot of people have given up on Mercer this season, and it's insane. He's 22 years old.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
This kid was so good last season. This season, he wasn't that good. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't you never thought about benching him. But he just wasn't nearly, he took over games in 2022-23. And you just didn't see that this year. Maybe 1 or 2 games, but he literally had 2 weeks where he was the best player on the ice from either team. And Jack Hughes was there. So Jack Hughes was coming off injury, but Jack Hughes was there, and Mercer was still the best guy on the ice. Better than Nico, better than Hamilton. He was the best guy on the ice. And when you see that out of a guy who's 22, learn your lessons from Jesper Bratt. Learn your lessons from Jesper Bratt, that when you see these shines from a guy, trust them. Trust that they're going to turn into that player, because Jesper Bratt is now one of the most underrated players in the league. And I think Mercer's going to get there. I think Mercer's on that similar trajectory. He does everything that Bratt did. He plays penalty kill. He does a little bit of everything on every unit. He's right now in the second power play unit. I think this is a guy that's going to turn into a fantastic player. And he's just in every mock trade for a goalie. And I'm don't do it. Don't. You don't have to do it. A lot of people are so desperate for a goalie because of what happened last year. And I get it. But here's the deal. Is that the Devils can make very small moves that will save them. Obviously, the big move is to get in the starter. You still got to get the starter. But with a Markstrom deal, you're looking at a guy who is a stopgap. I still believe in Nico Dawes. The dude came off a hip surgery, and you overworked the heck out of him. That's why he fell off, because you just, I know you're still stumping for Lindy Ruff, Sam, but that was the one thing that he just didn't know how to deal with the goalies. And once he found one that was working, he leaned on them so heavily that it hurt them multiple times. And I just think with Sheldon Keefe, a guy who has been really smart with his lineups and has been really smart with how he's utilized his players, I really think that you can get, like, you might see starter Nico Dawes by the end of next season. And sorry, I'm jumping way too far ahead. Let me go back to what I'm actually trying to say. So let's say you get Markstrom. Let's just fill in that blank. I think Sar's going to cost too much, and I think Allmark's value is just much higher than what it actually is. I don't think he was actually the best goalie in the league 2 years ago. I think he just won because they were a historic team, and they had a historic team in front of him. I don't know if Allmark – I think Allmark will be good here. I think he can win a Stanley Cup. I'm not going to be not excited for him, but I'm going to really analyze the price that they pay. For Saros, there are very few prices that I think would be crazy. Although somebody mentioned to me trading Holtz, Mercer, a number one, and Casey, which is now we're just talking insane. Like, let's come back to earth. I get we want a goalie, but you also have to talk about leverage in these conversations. And the Devils still have some leverage. Again, you're competing with Carolina as Nikas, but the second that Carolina makes their deal for a goalie, the Devils have wildly more assets than the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Los Angeles Kings gave up a ton of assets in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, and they're just not dealing with as many. They're not trading Byfield. They're not trading, there's a couple of players on their team they're just not going to move. But here's my other issue, Sam, and tell me if you think this is true. I look at what the Devils, I look at how these negotiations go, and I look at the Timo Meier deal, and the Devils said they're not giving away one of their premium assets. So the Sharks asked for multiple good to great assets. I'm talking about assets. I'm not talking about impacts. I'm talking about assets. So they got a second-round defenseman in Nikita Hoytuk. They got a first-round defenseman in Shakir Mukhamadullin. They got a decent young NHL player who you knew was going to get better in Fabian Zetterlund. They got what almost equated to 2 first-round picks, but it ended up being a first and a second-round pick. And they gave up some interesting pieces, like who's the defenseman? His name is escaping me. That played fine when he was in the NHL this year.
Erik Karlsson?
No, on the Devils. He was in that Timo Meier trade. He came to the Devils. He played in the AHL for most of the year, but he was decent when he played on the Devils. The name is I'm so mad at myself. They got a guy who could be a third line NHL defenseman, and they got a pick. I think it's like a 4th or a 6th or something like that. So, but the Devils did the trade where they gave up a lot of good assets. They don't have that in the chamber anymore. There's a couple reasons why. A, they did that with the Timo Meier trade. You only have so many of those that you can do. And 2,
Hataka.
Hataka, thank you.
Thank you,
Santeria
Tom.
Hataka. Thanks, Tom. I really like Hataka. I think he could be an NHL defenseman. But now you're looking at it where... So 2 things happened. 1, you did that trade. You don't have a lot of those assets anymore. And 2, your prospects aren't developing like they were a year or 2 ago. I look at the AHL, and the team didn't make the playoffs. Graham Clark took a slight step back in his development. Slight, but in his value. I'll say his value has dropped a slight bit. All of your defensemen you take, these Charlie Lettys and those ilk, aren't turning into anything. You took some flyers from some defensemen. They're not really turning out. The only one who did is Seamus Casey, which is now through the roof good, right? The Devils are either hitting home runs with their draft picks, like Haminahu looks amazing. Casey looks amazing. Rituk looks amazing. But that's it. Then it's down. You drop 10 rungs from Gritsik to the next guy. And in the next couple of weeks, you are going to get top 25 prospects out of me. That's going to come this month. I know I promised it earlier, but a lot has happened that I just had to write about, and I had to put this on the back burner. It's coming in June. I'm going to do it before the draft because I just want to do it, and then I'll do another one later in the summer after the draft to kind of see where those guys fit in. Or maybe I'll do it first couple weeks of the season, kind of let some of those prospects develop a little bit or like see what they're turning into. The Devils just don't have the assets besides Nemitz, Luke Hughes, Alex Holtz, Dawson Mercer. Those are the types of assets that they have now. And, Nolan Foot's kind of there, but that injury last year really like hurt his value as well. So you're looking at this and you're thinking like, what team is going to look at it and think like, I talked to the team that had Simone Nemitz and Alex Holtz and Dawson Mercer, and I came out with none of them. Like, I just feel like the ego that comes with being a GM in the NHL isn't going to allow that trade to happen unless you're Calgary and you got a disgruntled asset that has already agreed to a trade here. And, and I don't think like if they lose Holtz in a goalie deal, it's not the end of the world. It truly isn't. There's no reason to lose Mercer. There's no reason. And I would argue that you just keep the pick. I keep going to Saroswell. Keep breaking down Barry Trotz. But until somebody else comes in and makes the deal for Saros, here's the real mistake. Is the Jake Allen trade was the mistake. And not that you got Jake Allen, because I like Jake Allen. The assets you gave up for Jake Allen are in 2025. And because you gave up those assets, you cannot give Jeremy Swayman a offer sheet. And that was the move. If there was ever an offseason to give an offer sheet, it's to Jeremy Swayman this offseason, and the Devils unfortunately don't have the assets to do it. Because not only are they missing, I think it's the 3rd round pick, but they are also missing the 2nd round pick because there's a addendum on the trade that if Jake Allen plays more than 41 games, it becomes a 2nd round pick. So they can't move either of those picks. As far as they might be able to trade one, be like they put another condition on it, but you can't use it in a RFA deal because there's an attachment to it. So that's my thought. Swayman was the guy. Now you can't get him. You ruined it with your asset management. But again, I don't know if Fitzgerald, like, it takes a lot of balls to go after an RFA, and a lot of these GMs just don't have that in them, right?
Yeah.
Don Waddell was a Cavalier, and like he was a pirate. Like he didn't care what people thought, and now he's gone. Now he's in Columbus. So I'm curious of how people are going to react to him.
I think Bobby Clark tried to do that years ago with Vancouver. And if you remember the Rangers, again, different collective bargaining agreement with the Joe Sakic trying to sign him to a long-term, but Colorado matched, if you remember, years ago. And ESPN did a thing about that, which I haven't watched yet.
Can we talk about the last 2 30 for 30s or Rangers related that are hockey? Like, what the heck?
Well, ESPN only...
I get 94. I get both subjects, but like back to back.
Well, ESPN, the people at ESPN, obviously they're in Bristol, Connecticut. They're all Ranger fans. What else are they going to... just the commentating was nauseating.
It was rough this year.
And
I respect, like, Linda Cohn is great if she's not in the Rangers game. And they don't put her on enough games. But she can't be unbiased when it comes to Rangers. She's been she's one of my favorite anchors I've ever seen on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like, the Rangers are the one team that she can't just put on her journalism hat for. She's out in outer space. Every other team, like, completely down the middle, one of the best journalists out there, one of the best sports anchors out there, like, of all time.
Yep.
I love Linda Cohn. But she just like when you talk about the Rangers, she's just a fan. And there's a lot of that.
I can say that about Michael Kay and the Yankees.
What do you mean?
Oh, he's a homer when it comes to the Yankees.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But he's the broadcast guy. You know what I mean? Like it's a
Yeah.
little, it's like Jack Edwards.
Oh, he's a homer
I
too.
hate Jack Edwards.
Oh yeah.
He's the worst. But
and he's gone.
He's at least
he's
on
gone
the
at
Bruins.
least.
Yeah, thank goodness. I couldn't I had ESPN Plus for a year, and I used to go to the I had it for a couple of years, but I used to go to the opponent's broadcast just to kind of see what was going on. Half of them are so homerish, and I truly don't think Ken Danico cheers when a good thing happens, but I think he's pretty down the middle as far as his analysis goes. And says is Salvador. Spalding, it's his first year, so I'm not trying to overanalyze what he did. I thought he was good though. Kanji, I just thought was great. Kanji was so good. I'm excited to see Spalding.
Spalding's in his second year, isn't he? Or third, going in his third.
Is he? Are you sure?
Who are you talking to here?
I don't know. Who am I talking to? Okay,
you're
third year.
He's going to his third season next year. Next season.
Oh, that's right, because that first season was honestly, this season doesn't exist to me. It was so terrible.
Yep.
But we're down to our last 10 minutes. I kind of want to talk to you about. So, do you think they should trade the 10th overall pick? That's scuttlebutt right
now. They better get somebody good. I wouldn't use that 10th overall pick to get Markstrom, but it's got to be. It's going to be in a package to get somebody good. I don't think the 10th overall.
If you're losing in a package for Brady Tkachuk. Sure. Obviously, it's got to there's got to be another premium asset in there, but or if you get would you trade it for Spencer Knight? I said no because Knight was originally a 13th overall pick and hasn't shown anything that he can be an NHL goaltender yet. And he's got a big contract. So I said no. But I still believe in the talent.
Trying to think. Would you blow it on a goalie?
Just Saros. It's the only one.
Probably. I would agree.
Unless something surprising happens. Maybe Dallas is annoyed at the Ottinger situation. I don't think they will be. I'm just trying to make up any possibility. Maybe the Swayman negotiations go terribly. Yeah, for Swayman, I'm giving up 10th overall and something else. Maybe I might give up Mercer in that deal. But I can't even think. People brought up Gustafson in Minnesota, and he was terrible last year. He's got one good year, one bad year. I don't want to take a chance on that if I don't have to. I'm just trying to think of who else it could be. There's talks of Sorokin, but I don't believe it. If Sorokin's available, send the farm. But I don't think he'll be available.
I don't think Lou's going to trade him. Look, I would be happy with a Markstrom Allen tandem for a year or two.
So here's my point with that. Yeah, you do the Markstrom Allen tandem, and you get a third. Not Keith Kincaid. You get a legit third. Wedgwood's going to be available this offseason. I would argue you should try to go after him to be a third. And what you do is you give them a one-way deal. So they're going to get an NHL salary either way. Unless you go after a flyer. I think Jack Campbell is going to get bought out. Make him your third. Give him a two-way deal. Give him a shot to earn himself some NHL playing time. But I think the Devils should carry 3 goalies. And I've said this on here. I've said this on the blog on pucksandpitchforks.com. I think the Devils should carry, you have 23 players. You need 20 on the ice. Carry a third goalie. And then, Sam, so here's what's going to happen. Say you get 16 back-to-backs again and the league completely screws you. You make that third goalie the backup in both back-to-backs. So God forbid, let's say you got Markstrom and Allen. God forbid Allen, tweaks something in the first game. You don't need to throw Markstrom out there and throw him out again. right? You can throw Campbell in there and then do Markstrom and Campbell again the next night, right? So you're not forced to play somebody, after they had to jump in cold and put themselves in the line. I like it. The way that asset management is so meticulous now, it flabbergasts me that maybe I've thought of it, but nobody has done this. Like, what, carry 3 goalies? It makes more sense to carry 3 goalies than it does to carry 8 defensemen. It's just how I feel.
Well, especially nowadays. I mean, goalies are getting hurt a little bit more because the game is so fast right now. They're not as durable. You see what Boston has done. They've really upped the ante on a tandem. And then when you look at Florida, Bobrovsky, and then you got Stuart Skinner on Edmonton, and then, the argument, do you really need an elite goalie to get into the Stanley Cup Finals? But then again, who has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on their team to kind of mask their issues?
Right.
Also, I mean, look at Vasilevsky. The kind of goaltenders that Florida had to go through, Shesterkin and Swayman. That's an amazing team. And
right.
But, again, it definitely helps to have an elite goaltender. But I don't think the Devils should force to get one at this point. I mean, it's very rare to get a Patrick Waugh out of nowhere for a trade. It has to be the right situation. I think what they should do is draft, develop Nico Daws. Kira Schmidt, I don't know if he's going to be around all those rumors that he probably wants to bolt, and go with
rumors that you saw on pucksandpitchforks.com, by the way. We were the first non-overseas newspaper to report on that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Just like the Let's Go Devils podcast when we spread Brady Tkachuk rumors 4 months ago, but, somebody else says it from a, popular, website or podcast, and suddenly it's gospel.
Listen, we got to stop pretending that we own these scoops. There's been a lot of that within the Devils beat. It's weird, but that's neither here nor there.
I didn't say we owned it. I'm just saying
no, and I'm not saying you, but it's this weird informational rights, whatever. It seems a little weird. But anyway,
I think the beef I have is if I say something of a statement, it's BS. But somebody else in the media could repeat the same exact thing I say, and suddenly it's just like the beefalytics.
Right.
5 years ago, I literally said on this podcast that the Devils are a bunch of wimps. And 5 years later, we're still talking about they got to get tougher. They got to get tougher. They got to get tougher.
And did you see my art? So I know you've been out. We have a couple minutes left. I'm going to talk about my article that I just wrote. It went up on pucksandpitchforks.com today. I talked about the one thing the Devils need to learn from the Eastern Conference champs, the Florida Panthers. And a lot of people disagree with what I wrote, and I stand by it. I truly don't care. They talked about this team is tough. This team is tough. From top to bottom, this team is tough. Do you know how you make a team tough from top to bottom? You teach toughness. Toughness can't be taught. Yes, it can. You absolutely can teach toughness in players. You could teach players to be tough. And that's what the Devils need to do. Sam Bennett is not a hitter, but he's a hitter now. I mean, he was kind of a hitter in Buffalo, but it just didn't make any sense. And that was what I'm trying to preach. Stop trying to fit a square peg in a round hole by signing hitters, signing tough guys. You don't need a Ryan Reeves. You don't need a. I'm trying to think of somebody like that. It would make no sense. You don't need a Curtis Gabriel. You don't need a Matt Rempe. Like, these are not the types of players you need who go out there looking for heads the second they get off the bench. You need a player who understands the moment. And every player up and down that Florida Panthers roster understands the moment. I'm going to go out there and do what's best for my team to win. And that is their mindset. Whether it's taking a shot, whether it's stealing the puck, whether it's making the pass, or whether it's knocking somebody's head off. I don't want to say head off because that's illegal, but knock it, like putting a straight hit right to a guy's chest. They know that they're going to do what's best for the team, and they have the skill set to do all of those things. So, yeah, you do want players like Timo Meier. I'd argue Nathan Bastian has an interesting skill set under the right coaching staff. You're looking at Eric Halla, who has the skill set. Honestly, Nico Hischier has the skill set. He's just never been taught. Just Brett has the skill set, never been taught. These are not weak players like we want to pretend they are, or that these Twitter Mongols say that they are. But they were in a system under Lindy Ruff and under John Hines that preached away from the puck. Move away from the puck, steal the puck, use your speed. And I think that there's value in that in the right cases, but that can be caught on tape and stopped, while a team that is great in the moment cannot be stopped because they're going to react in the proper way. And that's what you need to learn as far as toughness comes from the Florida Panthers. Teach toughness. Teach toughness to your best players. Make sure that every time that somebody's out there, the other team doesn't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to get laid into. They don't know if the puck is going to get stolen and go the other way. They don't know if that it's going to be a dump and chase. Like, be great at everything. And I think this team, outside of Hughes, that's the one thing I don't know with his size and stature and what you need him to be if you want to preach that to him specifically. But just put somebody on his line, that can do that. I look at what's going to happen this offseason, Sam, and I think the Devils have a chance to be transformational by luck. By luck. Because we talked about the Markstrom thing. I don't think that the price is going to be that high. I think that Josh Anderson's going to get bought out. And I think, the Canadians have been talking about how he's going to cost, second overall pick is going to take to get Josh Allen or Josh Anderson. No. Okay, well, it's going to cost Holtz. It's going to cost Mercer. It's going to cost your left ankle. No, it's not going to cost anything because you're going to buy him out because he was terrible for you last year and he kind of gave up. He needs some motivation, and I think if you bring him to the Devils, I'm not saying he's going to be Tom Wilson, but I think he could be Tom Wilson light. A little less dirty hits, a little less skill, but the right guy in the right place, and he doesn't take as many penalties as you would think a guy who plays like that does.
A long time ago, when the NHL was really North American players, the knock on European players, they were too soft, they played a different style, yada, yada, yada. And what did we find out years later? You can't teach the kind of talent that a lot of these European players had, but you can teach grit. And a lot of these European players spent some time in North America developing, and you can transform them to be gritty players. And some of the players that came out of Europe were pretty gritty. I mean, if you remember Matt Sundin or Matt Sundin.
Yeah, Sundin. Yeah, if you want to go far. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now the game is so good. You've got players from all over the world right now that can play at such a high level. And the European players don't have that knock anymore, that they're soft.
And I think Keith's the right coach. I do. I think they got the right coach. I would have loved Cooper or Cassidy or
Even Montgomery.
Brindamore, but they weren't available. Sullivan, sure. Yeah, I would have loved any of them. But they're good coaches, and good coaches don't always become available. Sheldon Keefe, I think, is a good coach. I think he could be a great coach. And I think he could be better than Jacques Lemaire when his career is over if he stays with the Devils.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
What he said. Do you know if he signed a 4 or a 5-year deal?
Who, Keefe?
No, it's one of those two.
I think it's 4. I think they basically took his 2-year of Toronto and they're like, all right, we'll do better than this.
Yeah, they paid him a little bit more over the first 2 years. But I think, I know he signed one of those two. I just didn't know which one, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's all I got, Sam.
So what do you want to plug?
We're just about out of time.
What do you want to plug?
pucksandpitchforks.com. If you go there right now, we have so many very interesting articles. So David Holliday, we just posted a story by David Holliday who picked 5 things he thinks will save the NHL in the future if they change them now. That's up on there. One of them is abolish the shootout and bring back ties. I thought that was wild, but it's an interesting opinion. It's up there on pucksandpitchforks.com. A lot of the other ones I think you'll all agree with, but that one, wild and crazy. You see his reasoning for abolishing the shootout. Also on pucksandpitchforks.com, Jersey Joe Stanislaw he put his scouting hat on. We got a 2-part mock draft series from Jersey Joe. I have a bunch of articles. I have the one I just told you about with the what the Devils need to learn from the Panthers. I also have one on 5 buyout candidates. I mentioned Josh Anderson. There's 4 others that are really interesting. It'll have you thinking. And I'm going to write a story tonight about 5 players in the Stanley Cup final that you want to pay attention to because they could be available for the Devils, and the Devils should absolutely go after them. So that's going up tomorrow morning, tonight probably. So if you go after 1 o'clock in the morning, you'll see it.
That's great.
And then one other thing. Friday, I'm going to push to get your New Jersey Devils rooting interest pieces up on pucksandpitchforks.com. I'll do one on the Panthers. I'll do one on the Oilers. So that'll go up before Game 1. Game 1 is what? Saturday? Or is it Friday?
Saturday. June 8th.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the only thing I'm going to plug is joinourcrew.com. Yes, joinourcrew.com. Sign up for the latest updates. We got a lot planned for the upcoming season. That's a few months away. I can't wait for the schedule to come out so we can start planning these little excursions. We're already talking to a couple people about Prague, so yes, we will keep you updated. Running with the Devils, thank you for your kind words. Ted, everybody else, Peter Seifert, Tom. All right, we're going to get out of here. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Till next time, let's go Devils.